All right, hey, we're back. Wait, did we do it yesterday? Was the other one
Quick
yesterday?
turnaround. Yep.
Quick
Quick
turnaround.
turnaround.
Quick turnaround. We have a great coach on, Gilman High School head coach Scott Van Zile. Really excited to talk to him. It's one of the premier programs in the DMV down in that area. Powerhouse every single year as a program, long history. Coach has been at and Derek, you correct me, Towson State as a assistant coach. He was at Monmouth too, correct?
Yeah. Well, player
Monmouth?
played at Towson, then was
Right.
at Monmouth for a really long time.
Yep.
Made a move to Elon and then eventually back to Towson. And now is at Gilman, down at the Gilman school down there. So kind of made the move back to high school. And I'm sure he'll touch on that a little bit, collegiate to high school and whatnot. But I'm
And
excited.
played at your alma mater in high school, right? As well.
That's it, Butler guy, buddy.
Butler guy. We can't be remiss without getting either a Butler or Montclair guy on. So we're
Hey man, it is what it is. That's how it works. Like, it's all good. We got
without
things to
further,
say.
that's it. Hey, listen, it's a pretty good network. Without further ado, Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on. Definitely excited to have the opportunity to do this today.
Coach, appreciate you, buddy.
Coach, we touched a little bit on your background, but we probably didn't do it justice. If you want to really kind of dive into it, let our viewers know, your background as a player and as a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the good fortune and the great opportunity to grow up in Butler. I heard you guys joking about it a little bit. I know you had Coach Mickens on not too long ago, and I was able to listen to that. And I don't think many people outside of Butler recognize how unique of a place it is, particularly if you are into football. And I've had the opportunity to visit literally thousands of schools from the Northeast, the Mid Atlantic to the Southeast. There are very few places left in this country that are like Butler. So had a great opportunity there. Had the opportunity to play for phenomenal coaches and Coach Jones and Coach Mickens and Coach Hofflinger and a lot of great coaches and on top of that also great educators. So that was pretty a pretty neat experience. And also it was circumstantial, but went through Butler at a time where we had some really good athletes for such a small
Yes,
place.
sir.
And I think Butler up to that point they had won a couple sectional titles in the mid 80s. And then we had a team that we had an undefeated season, and 90 season of 94 we won the state sectional, which I believe kicked off a 6-year run of consecutive sectional titles, which I know Derek was a big part of. So I definitely I don't take for granted where I came from and the opportunities that I had there. And it was also a little bit unique situation. My father was a long time head high school football coach and educator. So I think just kind of through proxy being around him and all the great coaches and great educators that, being around him allowed me to be around, make up a good part of my foundation. I had the opportunity to continue on my playing career at Towson University. I went down there, had a really good experience. It was a very different place than Butler for sure. And, I'm very grateful for it being different, just a lot of different perspective for me, and really, really enjoyed my time there. And I think I kind of always knew I wanted to coach. Probably, originally I was like, I'm going to be a college football coach. Like that's it. And that's all. And I'll kind of explain, how I got to where I am now, but was coming out and graduated in December. So was, putting some feelers out there. Again, pretty lucky. My dad had some connections with some coaches that over his time, through the recruiting game. And one of the people I talked to at Towson, we actually played Monmouth a couple times. And after the game my senior year, I just went over to Coach Callahan, who had recruited me in high school. So we were familiar with each other. And I just said, hey, listen, I'm thinking about possibly getting into this. And we kind of connected a couple of times and followed up. And he had a restricted earnings position. I went down there, and that restricted earnings, if anyone is uncertain of the title, it is full-time work, probably less than part-time pay. A bunch of us,
That's for
you
sure.
know, lived in a house. Probably the best thing about it was we got a free ride at the dining hall, which I definitely took advantage of. But it was great. Probably couldn't have asked for a better, what I would consider my original coaching mentor as a
Oh, yeah,
professional than Coach
definitely.
Callahan. As good as it gets, and the college game, a lot of moving to develop, and I was really, really lucky to be able to develop right there in West Long Branch. Started, like I said, at restricted earnings. I was coaching the running backs. Then I moved into a full-time position and recruiting coordinator, coaching the receivers. So I was there for 14 years. My last 6 years, I was coaching the quarterbacks, and I was the offensive coordinator. So I was really able to grow and develop, and didn't have to move. Which is rare in the profession, And then after my 14th season there, a gentleman named Rich Skrosky, he was the offense coordinator when I first got to Monmouth. He had then gone on to Columbia and a couple other stops. We'd always stayed in contact, and he had gotten the head job down at Elon, which is in Burlington, North Carolina. They were transitioning from the Southern Conference into the CAA. And it just kind of seemed like the right time for a move. One place for 14 years, and honestly, I could have stayed there my entire career at
Oh,
Monmouth,
yeah.
no doubt about it. But I also felt that there was room for continued growth. That maybe I wouldn't be able to get that at a place I'd been for so long. And it was a great opportunity for me and my wife, and we had two young daughters at the time, to move down south and experience something different. And we had a great 3 years down there. Thought it was going to be a little bit longer, but college football, don't plan too far ahead.
Nope.
I've figured out, so at the end of our 3 year run there, Coach Skrosky had a great opportunity to move on and be a Division I offense coordinator. And I was looking for a job, and that was probably the first time in my career, that the profession of college football kind of smacked me in the face a little bit. Here I am, with
Hmm.
a wife and two kids in Burlington, North Carolina, 8 hours away from any family or support, without a job. Went to the convention. Actually, I flew out to the convention the day I found out that we weren't going to be retained by the new head coach. And I get to the convention, and offense coordinator at Towson when I was there, his name was Rob Ambrose, and he went on and had a really good run as the offense coordinator at the University of Connecticut. And then they brought him back to be the head coach at Towson, and had a phenomenal run there. Went to a national championship, won the CAA a couple times, and he saw me and he said, I'm going to have something for you. Just sit tight." So that was pretty awesome. And that's why we do what we do, to you form these relationships, you meet these people, and when you have an opportunity to pay it forward, you do so. So he brought me on. I coached the running backs, then I coached the quarterbacks. It was really neat having the opportunity to coach at my alma mater, obviously. Really cool opportunity. But there came a point there, in my last year. I had two daughters. Like I said, two daughters. One was in middle school, one was headed into middle school. And the reality was, I wasn't going to be at Towson for the next, 8 years to see them through their time. They're at the Bryn Mawr School down here, which is one of the best all
Premier.
girls independent schools in the country. They were kind of ingrained in their sports. They're both lacrosse players and other sports, but they're ingrained in their clubs and all that kind of stuff at the time. So kind of got to the point where I had to make a decision. And, I had the opportunity to grow up in one town and then work at a place for 14 years. And, I didn't want to have to ask them to move around for me. Um, So, I'd been familiar with the independent school scene down here in Baltimore, and it's a little bit unique, not too dissimilar to some of the privates in northern New Jersey. There are probably some distinct differences, but one of these opportunities kind of was presented to me, and that was at St. Paul School for Boys,
Right.
which is only about 4 miles from where I'm at now. And it was just a weird time, right? We're just about to head into COVID, and they were in the middle of some transition with a new head, a new athletic director, new director of admissions. So we kind of went around there a little bit, and ultimately, once they had all those people in place, and I had the opportunity to talk to those people, I decided to make the switch and go over there. And to be honest with you, my 20 years coaching college football, like I wouldn't trade it. It was awesome. But I absolutely made the right decision for me, for my family. It's been great. So had 2 great years at St. Paul's, and then this Gilman opportunity presented itself. And you can make an argument, there's in a lot of ways, there's a lot of similarities between the two schools. But ultimately, the history and tradition of Gilman School football. It also helps out that there's a bridge that goes over to the Bryn Mawr School where my daughters are at. My wife is director of admissions here at Gilman in the middle school. So it really gave us the opportunity to really kind of all be together, and that kind of was the deciding factor for me to come over here. So had 2 years over here, and it's been nothing but fantastic. And so that's kind of my background.
That is a great and comes from. I definitely get the award for the perfectly timelined it for us better than everybody else. That's why you're so successful as a coach. Fantastic. I learned a ton on that. The first question is, and I guess maybe the obvious one, the transition from college to high school. So having been a college coach for a very long time, and obviously, and I guess you were still coaching before the transfer portal really became a big thing. But talk about the transition from college to high school and what that was like for you. What were some of the things that you kind of had to reframe in your mind in order to coach high school?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference, the biggest thing that affected me is going from a situation where football is the most important thing to college football players, and football is the most important thing to college football coaches, right? That is what it is. And transitioning to football not being the most important thing, rightfully so, to high school age students, and honestly, football not being the most important sport to a bunch of the students, right? They play football, but they are lacrosse players. They play
Yeah.
football,
Yep.
because at Gilman we are a multi-sport school. Everyone has to
Definitely.
participate in multiple sports, which I love. I think is great. And our coaches, and I'm very, very fortunate to have great coaches, but they are chemistry teachers first, they are English teachers first,
Yeah.
and so on. So kind of understanding and pacing what we are doing based off of that, I think was a big transition. But I think in general, like when I think about it, I don't think it was like earth shattering to me making the transition, because when I think back on it, as much as I thought for 20 years I'm going to be a college coach for the rest of my life, like my my growing up, like my heroes, my mentors, and what, like, they were high school football coaches. They were John Byduk, who I knew, you've had on. They were Mark Mickens. They were um, Jerry Gallagher, who was, instrumental in just as a player, right? He was a revered coach. Then when I recruited, in Morris County, Cosmo LaRusso and all those guys. And I had so much respect for them as coaches, but also had respect for them that they they had really good perspective on what their job was, right? They were coaching football, but they were educators also. And obviously my father and all of his friends. So it's not like that whole thought process and idea was foreign to me. That's what I knew. And now looking back on it, like I'm kind of like, maybe this is where, and again, I wouldn't trade anything, but this is where I should be, and this was kind of what my path was going to be. Maybe I didn't necessarily know it at the time, but I feel pretty confident that um, because of the people who set examples for me at a young age, were so impactful that getting into the high school game wasn't crazy.
Yeah, there's no like Gilman School being a tremendous academic school, like obviously known well for athletics, but the academic side is top notch, and a lot of those schools in the those independent schools in DMV area, that in Baltimore area, that's really the big focus is the academic part. And I know how big lacrosse is in Maryland in general. I mean, Maryland and Long Island, like lacrosse is king. Talk about I really think the benefits of the multi-sport athlete. I mean, obviously lacrosse and football, there's almost like a natural fit there from an athletic skills standpoint. But talk about that, because me and Derek talk about this all the time. And if you look at the top tier athletes in the pros and stuff, I mean, even if you go to you took the most glaring examples, even in like basketball. LeBron James played football. Anthony Edwards played football, right? Anthony Edwards is the new star in basketball, right? Played football in high school, right? So talk about how the multi-sport athlete and how it all works together, and really the benefits of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the benefits are multifaceted. First and foremost, to me, you can, and a lot of guys, right? I'm not going to play basketball this winter. Okay, what are you going to do? I'm going to lift. I'm going to train. Okay, I'm not going to play lacrosse. I'm going to go lift. I'm going to train. And don't get me wrong. And Derek, I think can attest to this. Like there was a culture of strength, a culture of the weight room at Butler, and I think that attributed to a lot of our success, right? But we were still playing. We were still competing year round in other
Always.
sports.
I mean, we
And
kind of had to too, right? Like it
absolutely.
was a small school. So,
Yeah.
if the other guys didn't play basketball or guys didn't run track, like there probably wouldn't have been a track team or a basketball team. Like it's just, we were ingrained in that, I think, from the jump. So to see, and that's why Dave and I talk about it all the time too, right? Like we always like, guys, go do other sports, right?
Yeah.
And we had Mike Smith on too, right? And Mike was a big proponent of it too. Like his guys down at Heritage, like multi-sport guys, like this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously just competing year round, competing with the same guys that you're going to compete with in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, we kind of talked about, like some of our lacrosse guys, and lacrosse is a little bit of a different scene, because the club world is so big.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people pushing them. Like you have to play lacrosse all the time, all the time, all the time, and my pitch to the guys here are like, these are going to be your lacrosse teammates in the spring. Why not compete with them in the fall also?
Right.
And probably most importantly, and I encourage guys, like, go do something that maybe you're not the best at. Go do something that maybe doesn't come easily. Go figure out what it means to have to really grind to just be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go be part of a team where you have to be a role player. I think as a competitor, as an athlete in your primary sport, you will benefit greatly from being in a situation where things don't just come easily to you. Because there's going to come a point where in your primary thing, like there's going to be some adversity. There's going to be a badder dude out there, right?
Yep.
And if you haven't faced that yet, I question how you're going to respond to it. So I think there's so many benefits to it. And obviously it's something that, we really celebrate here. And, at the same time, respecting that, okay, yeah, maybe, we have a guy coming back that, he's a top 20 recruit in lacrosse in the country, but he loves playing football, and there's some things in the summers that, he can't be with us, and that's okay. I think my big thing is, when we hit August 5th and we start preseason camp through the end of the football season, football is your priority. And I think we have a great understanding, and it really helps to have coaches like we have here that we're all on the same page with that. We want to support the boys, and we understand how important it is from a numbers standpoint, like Derek was saying, to encourage all of our guys to play other sports.
I think the point, and me and Derek were both pointing at the same exact time, because we just had this conversation about the great thing about playing multiple sports is you might be a star in your main sport, but when you go and play another sport, you might be a role player. You might be you might become the guy, but you may not initially be the guy. And learning part, like I think that might be the greatest thing. And obviously, there's all these other benefits, obviously, athletically and physically, and you're using different muscles. All those kind of things are great. But I think the ability that if you're the star in one sport and now you go to another sport and you're a teammate in that sport, even if you're one of the better guys, but you're not the best guy, you learn to be a better teammate in there, and you learn to have to work hard because other people might be better than you at that sport. And that adversity, I think that's a huge thing. And one of the things I kind of noticed too is there was a huge trend to one sport. And there's still a lot of people that want to do one sport and all that kind of stuff. But I think we're starting to see little by little a movement back towards multiple sports, because there's so much stuff coming out about overuse injuries playing just one sport, more information coming out about the benefits of doing multiple sports, which goes beyond and you were a track guy like I was. We always used to laugh when a guy would say, I'm just going to lift instead of like run track. And I'm like, wait a minute, like running track is like takes lifting and puts it to task like no other. I mean, you're going out and you're doing sprint, the pain you'll feel, and you're lifting with it because it coincides with it. Right. So because you're going to be lifting anyways if you're running track. So, and that's just one other sport, but it's the same thing across many different sports, that like going out and competing, I think you develop different types of strengths that you would not develop if you just only did one sport.
Yeah, and then burnout is real, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Burnout is real, and we see it all the time, and it stinks. And unfortunately, like more times than not, it's not the kid.
No,
it's the parents. It's the outside trainer that push for this, and the kid gets to a point where they're just like, I'm done with this. Especially right if they don't see the fruits of their labor to the point where it was promised. Right. Like if you do this year round, you're going to be a Division I recruit. Like that's not true. Right. Yes, you can improve. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you come out and you're a Division III athlete, you're probably, if you work hard, that's probably what you're going to be. And if you start walking around and you're born and gifted to be a Division I athlete, that's probably where you're going to end up getting slotted. Like I think the misconception is if I do something more than everyone else, I'm just going to bypass everyone. And unfortunately, science and genetics, all those things in the end,
it's all real.
Yeah, it's real. For sure.
I was gonna be 5'8" no matter what, buddy. I didn't have a shot. It's just kind of what it is. What it is.
No, and that is a big part of it. It's like this. You may be able to move up a rung, but you're not moving up 5 rungs.
Absolutely. That's completely accurate.
Right, and that's one of the things that I think people. I have an 8-year-old, so who's going to be 9, and I see it already how like guys are so like I think my kid's sport is X. I'm like, how do you know what your kid's
Like,
sport
how do you
is?
have a clue?
I mean, I don't know what my kid's sport is yet. Like, even though like I've seen him play all these different sports, but every time I see him play a new sport, I'm like, oh wow, he does pretty good there. And I'm like, okay. And then you never like puberty. People always forget this. Like
Yep.
puberty changes the whole world in a way that none of us know exactly what's going to happen there, because I would say there's so many times that I remember from coaching high school, like this kid was the greatest sixth grade football player of all time. And he was still the same height when he was a sophomore in high school.
Right.
And, he was 5'3" in sixth grade. He was 5'3" in 11th grade. He went from being the star player. He was still a role player, but
Right.
like he was not a star player anymore. And I think that's the thing that people miss out on too. It's when you recruit in college, I'm sure, and I'm guessing, but I'm sure when the parents walk in the room with the kid, you probably get a good feel of like, okay, this guy may get a couple more inches, maybe not, you kind of get a good feel on
Yep.
certain things. And I think parents sometimes miss that. That's why you just try to be the best that you can be and enjoy
Yes.
the time period. It goes so fast. It goes so fast.
It does, and there's no guarantee that after your 4-year high school career that it's going to continue again, regardless of what you do. And so yeah, have fun with it. Have fun with your buddies. Take advantage of it, because I think if you ask guys who didn't, that's probably something they look back and regret.
Yeah, I would assume that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of guys that are adults that did not. They try to force that on their kids because they did not
Because they
get
didn't have
what they want from it, and they
Yep.
go overboard, the complete opposite way on it all. But we got off a little off tangent, a tangent on there. But I think it's an important topic. And then now that you're working with high school athletes, a lot of kids want to go to the Gilman school. That's a school that people want to get into from an let's put football aside, academically, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
People want to get in there. What are some of the things that you're looking for as a student and athlete when you're meeting with parents and they're thinking about bringing their kid to your school?
Yeah, I think one of the things that come in the very beginning is I have to figure out if a young man and his support system, whoever that may be, if they are academically motivated. And I
huge.
say academically motivated because we're not just out there looking for the smartest kids, right? That's kind of like a little bit of a misnomer, that all the kids that walk these halls are the smartest kids. Not necessarily, right? Um, they are bright, they are capable, but if you're not motivated, if that's not a motivating factor for a young man and his family, it will be difficult to be successful here, because we ask a lot of our
Absolutely.
students, and I want to make sure that we bring in guys that can be successful, right? That honestly, that's number one for me. I want a kid to be able to come through here, be able to be successful, and success is a little bit different for everyone. I completely understand that, right? This isn't a Ivy League or bust type of place, right? It is everyone, you know, um, aspiring to be the best that they can, and put themselves in the best position that they can. But if and I tell families, like, if you're just about ball, if that's like really your drive, like that's it, that's
Not here.
fine. That's fine, but there are better places for you, you know?
Right.
Um, and, from a football standpoint, you talked about, recruiting 17, 18-year-olds coming out of high school. That's difficult enough. And now I'm trying to, forecast a 12-year-old, that we're trying to bring in
Yeah.
here for the seventh grade. So,
Hasn't hit
yeah,
puberty yet.
yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of, you start looking at a lot of those factors, right? Are they multi-sport guys? You know, can they bring, more than just being a football player here. You know, can they help our lacrosse team? Can they help our wrestling program? And vice versa, right? Those coaches here are doing the same thing. Yeah, looking at the gene pool, looking at mom, looking at dad. You know, okay, what type of growth potential does this young man have? You know, those are all things that factor in. But I think at the end of the day, if we find young men and families that we feel pretty strongly are going to come here and grind academically, athletically, we'll have some pretty good young men to come through our program.
No doubt about it. What does the program look like for year round for you guys? How does that process work from a football standpoint, off season standpoint?
Yeah, so obviously a little bit different. This is one of the things I had to shift gears a little bit in going from college and obviously understanding pretty intimately what like running a college football program year round looked like. And I saw a couple different examples and you know, it's a lot. Then you come, like I said, you know, with these guys, you know, they're going right from football on, you know, our last game's on a Saturday, Monday afternoon. Sometimes coach, you know, basketball coach or wrestling coach will be like, hey, take 2 days and, you know, we'll see you on Wednesday, and they get going. So once we get out of our season, what we do is we don't do anything, we don't offer anything through the Christmas break. A couple of reasons. One, you know, winter season tryouts, the start of the winter season, finals or midterms at that time of year are a big thing here. So I want guys to just focus on whatever is next at that point. Then when we get back from Christmas break, we're really fortunate here. We have a full-time strength and conditioning coach that works with our athletes. We
awesome.
offer 2 lifting sessions Tuesday and Thursday mornings where guys can come in, and you know that's all kind of coordinated with their in-season coach. You know, some of those programs, a lot of those programs do have in-season lifting, so that's cool. Some of them that don't, or maybe not as much, particularly for the sub-varsity level guys. You know, so I'd say we probably average 20 to 25 guys per morning throughout the winter. That continues right in through the spring. We don't have spring practice down here. We will have 3 workouts next week, and it's kind of like this weird rule. So you can get up to 3 hours with your out of season athletes all winter and all spring. We don't do that again because of the multi-sport guys, but we do have a window of when spring sports are over and before finals. So we'll bring the guys out next week, just some introductory stuff. We'll actually do some of our strength testing with our strength coach, just so we have a good baseline headed into the summer. And then when we hit the summer, we have a 6-week program. 3 weeks in June, 3 weeks in July. We go for 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. And that's about 45 minutes to an hour of football skill development and, you know, scheme installation on the field. Our strength coach comes out. Yeah, he comes out to the field and he's on the field with them for about 30 minutes, whether it's change of direction, you know, we're just working speed, some plyo stuff, and then they're in the weight room for an hour. So that's kind of like the meat of our off season. But again, you know, we have guys that are, you know, they're traveling all over the country for different showcases for other sports and things like that, which we completely understand. You know, and then I think our preseason is probably very similar. You know, we have the 6 days of singles, mandatory day off. Then we have a couple, you know, we really only have 2 weeks of preseason because most of the teams down here will open up week 0.
Yep.
So that 3rd week, you're technically already in game week. You know, we've made it a point and mandatory here in season. All of our varsity football players lift twice a week, and then our JV players, they will lift 3 times a week because I think that's where we can make the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time. Is again developing that culture of the weight room and strength and how important it is.
No doubt about it. It's a great off-season program, and the league you guys playing. So who are the teams that are in that division?
So us, McDonough School, uh, Loyola Blakefield, Archbishop Spalding, Calvert
Very good.
Hall. Yeah, it's a really tough league. Mount St. Joe. The
Yeah, you
strange
got a
thing about
Rolodex of powerhouse teams in there.
yeah, for sure. The strange thing about it is, right, we're kind of all over the map. Calvert Hall has 1,200 boys, right? We have 450 boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's some
So
some
it's not like
schools,
Jersey where group 1, group 2,
right,
like
right.
you're kind of just
Yeah, we have some schools that cost $15,000 a year, and then there's some of us cost $40,000 a year. So a little bit of everything. So I think that's why it's really important. I don't necessarily get caught up or worry about what other people do. I'm trying to
Right.
find
right. That's
the
a great
best
outlook.
recipe for us and how we can be the most successful, which I think is really important. But it's a neat place. This year is 124 years of football here at Gilman. Started
Wow.
playing in 1901.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
so yeah,
Yeah, I
we've
got
been
Coach
playing.
Eastman's book. Yeah, that's a great book.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We've been playing a long time, and it's really neat. McDonough School, which I referenced, this year we will play them for the 108th time.
Wow.
So one of
Yeah,
the
there's
one of
a
the
ton of
great
tradition.
rivalries
Yeah, there's a lot.
in the country. So some really neat stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a unique. Gilman School is always a place. I think. Do you guys play out of state games too, or is that
So we have, there was a
okay?
time here at
Oh,
There
Gilman
was a time when
where,
yeah.
they were playing a national schedule for
Oh,
the most
right.
part, still playing the league games. The league was a little bit smaller at that time. So I mean, they were on ESPN,
yep.
multiple times a year.
It was my first
We
game when I was at Bosco. It was the first team we played was
Yeah,
Gilman.
yeah, they had consecutive years of Gatorade Player of the Year. Some things have shifted, some things have changed, but I think in general, the history and tradition and pride, that hasn't changed. This year we're going up to Haverford up in
Okay. Yeah.
PA to play them. We went up 2 years ago to Lawrenceville, played
Yeah.
them. I think when we're looking at a conference, we're trying to find similar schools, right, in
Right.
terms of size, and just kind of generally what they're doing. We play a lot of bigger parochial schools, so in conference, so it probably doesn't make a sense for us to go up and play Bergen.
Right.
Necessarily.
Right.
Not
Right.
that we wouldn't, but
Yeah,
I
like a
think for
Del
you
Barton.
guys, I think that's probably our peer up there would be Del
Yeah.
Barton,
That's
similar
what
Yeah.
that's
size,
what I was thinking.
Yep.
and all those things. And so that's kind of who we look to schedule at a conference if at all possible.
Interesting. Recruit a little shift to recruiting.
Yeah.
You left college right before. I mean, it was already starting to brew, but right before the transfer portal and definitely before NIL became a big thing. Um, I'm curious your thoughts on it, both as a ex-college coach, and then also the effects maybe it has or hasn't had on your high school program. Curious about that.
Yeah, I think from a college coach's standpoint, I don't envy them at all. I can't tell you how many guys, if not all of them, that especially the ones that I know have come through. They're like, man, you got out at the right time. But at the end of the day, I think it's adapt or die. Those that the rules have changed, the game has changed. Those are the rules, and I think the guys that adapt and the guys that find a way to to make it work for them in the current state are the guys that are going to be successful and the guys that are going to survive. Um, and I find myself sometimes, just being like, this is so stupid, this is ridiculous, like,
Yeah.
Right,
and that's a crappy attitude to have.
right.
Not saying never you have to agree with it, but it is what it
Right.
is. Figure out a way that you can be successful, that your program can be successful within the new rules and new guidelines. I think it is a little bit sad in terms of just I don't think the young men going to college programs today are going to have the same experience that we were
No.
fortunate enough to
Yep.
have
Nope.
with, that continued that continued camaraderie and brotherhood. And I think that part of it's sad, but that is what it is. From a high school standpoint, I think the thing that has affected the high school athlete more than anything are the additional COVID years. I think that is the biggest thing that's affecting high school. Not the only thing, but the biggest thing, because which I believe this is the last class.
Yeah, it is. Yep. This is the
Now,
last one to finish.
right? So everyone says, "Oh, there aren't nearly as many opportunities." Well, that's not because of the transfer portal, right? There aren't less programs, there aren't less scholarships, right? It's just there were guys that had
Holdovers.
additional
Years.
right? Guys that were 6 and 7 years in a program.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got some guys that have been on rosters since, there's guys already in the NFL for 2-3 seasons, and then these guys are still playing,
Right. Yeah, it's
college.
wild. So once that is through, I think you're kind of back to, okay, same amount of opportunities. Now, the thing that's different is, right, the opportunities that the young men want and possibly had opportunities for prior aren't necessarily there anymore because of the transfer, right? Because Rutgers can fill a need with an all-conference CAA player.
Right.
Which you
Okay.
really do. You see a lot of CAA
Absolutely.
guys specifically, right? Like
Right.
not, and not here nor there, but you
Right.
do see that
So,
conference a little bit more than others.
And then the CAA, school, I don't know, let's say Villanova, whoever, right? They have an immediate need now. So they're going to look to the Patriot League, or they're going to look to the PSAC, or wherever it might be. So from that standpoint, it's not less opportunities. It's just some different opportunities. So again, adapt or die, right? I try to tell our guys, yes, this may be where you want to be, right? If that opportunity doesn't present itself right now, there are other ways to get there, right? Don't sit there and hang on and try to figure out, like, how can I get a Division I scholarship because that's where I think I can play, right? If that's not going to be your route, go to a lower level, right? And I try to always tell them this, and don't go saying I'm going to transfer, right? Go be excited about it and do your best. And if you go and you do what you're supposed to do, those opportunities are going to find you. And it's crazy because as a college coach, like, if I ever heard in my time, if I ever heard a high school coach say, well, you can go there and then you can transfer, like, I'd be like, screw you, dude. Like, why are you putting that in that kid's head? But again, times have changed, right? And I think, I had a young man at St. Paul's who he probably was a Division I prospect prior to the transfer portal, right? But that just it didn't play out for him, and he was kind of really holding out, and he had some FCS opportunities, and I was like, listen, dude, like, do not pass up on this. This is a
You
great
better pull the trigger.
opportunity. Like, whether you're there for 4 years, it's a great opportunity, or you're there for 2 years and someone comes calling, again, an opportunity. So, I think, again, the game has changed, and I think, putting my job, right, is to put our young men in the best position possible, again, for them to be successful moving forward. And that isn't me overselling them and putting them in a position where they're going to get to and not be successful. And unfortunately, I think there are some places that do that. And it's, it stinks because there's some really good players out there that could have great college careers that kind of, whether they get oversold or whatever it is, and then, like, you never hear about them again.
Right. There's no doubt about it. It's funny because when I was in high school, I graduated in 92. That was the year that they went from 95 to 83 or 85.
Yep.
So that was the year. So I was affected tremendously. So I went to UConn scholarship, but it went from, once that really started to kick in recruiting, it went from talking to all these schools in the spring to now I had two now you call it FBS offers, and then all CAA and Ivy League offers, and you really had to shift your mindset, but the opportunities were still great. I mean, I went to UConn, nice career, enjoyed it. Towson beat us in '93, I think it was. They had a great running back, Troy Vincent. No, what was it?
Yeah, Troy Vincent.
Troy Vincent.
He was outstanding.
Yep. He was a great running back. So we had a great game against them. But yeah, it's that mind shift is important, and I think it's important for parents to understand that kids gonna have to adapt. So and you know what, if you can adapt now and make the most of your opportunities, then you're gonna be fine. But I think you're 100% right on the obviously the scholarship numbers haven't changed. The COVID thing, which I thought was basically done a couple of years ago, the extra numbers, but it seems to have lingered for a very long time, the extra numbers. And I think part of it too is that the NCAA is a lot more lenient with sixth-year guys. So the old days,
like everybody gets medicals now too, right?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? You could sign.
Well, the NCAA, they don't want to end up in litigation.
Correct.
Right. They don't want to end up in litigation at the end of the day. And that's right. Kids and families and schools got smart at some point, and they said they don't want to give you a chance. Sue them.
Right.
Sue them. I'm not saying that's right or wrong.
That's exactly right.
The NCAA got the point that we can't have all these cases going on and
600 lawsuits because we didn't let Johnny play because he tore his ACL, game 4 when it's supposed to only be game 3 or whatever.
Right.
So the leniency has definitely changed some things too.
Yeah. And another thing that, you talked about parents and the kids and kind of the mindset shift and everything. Obviously, social media has made things very, very difficult on young people. And I mean that I know a lot of good things come out of it, but the pressure and everything of seeing all these, blessed to get my 10th offer and all that stuff, and
every day,
not understanding that, the kids that the 1% of kids that post all those things, no one wakes up in the morning and we're like blessed to not get offered by anyone today. But that's 90% of them, right? That is what it is.
You're looking at the smallest percentage, but the biggest. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we see. And Dave and I talk.
Plus, it's over and over again. You're right when they say I'm blessed to get my 10th offer. You're seeing the same kid. There's those 200 to 300 kids in the whole country that are getting those 15, 20 offers. And they're posting over and over again, which ends up being thousands and thousands of posts, which trick these kids. Those kids who are posting aren't trying to trick anyone. They're just posting about.
No, it's not their fault. Absolutely.
But it seems like all these people are getting offers when they don't realize it's the same guy.
It's the same human.
Posting over.
There's one list of names for each year, and these are the kids, right? And it's
the same kids.
That's what's promoted, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's that's tough. That's tough on families. That's tough on kids. Because like I said, it's in your face constantly. But like I said, I don't want to sit here and complain about it because it is what it is. I try to educate our kids and our families to the best of my ability. But it's not easy sometimes.
Yesterday it was interesting when Chad Brain said, and he said it flippantly. I don't know if you caught this, Tarek. You probably did. But when he said, in a few years, he's like, listen, you just have to continue to adapt because in a few years you might have people transferring. They might allow transferring in mid-season. You lose a guy. I remember when he kind of flippantly said it.
He was serious.
But he was serious. Yes. He was serious. He said, probably, you need to pick up a guy in October. You'll be able to pick up a guy in October.
He talked about it being a lot like almost like free agency, right? Or like, hey, here comes the playoffs. I better go sign somebody, right?
Yeah.
And with the way it looked, now with the college football play, I mean, look, even now, I think that one of the big issues too is in college is just the calendar setup for the way it is, right? Like the timing of certain things. And look, like at that high level, your season ends, and then you may have over a month before your bowl game. I mean, for the most part, that could be an entirely different roster, right? Just with the guys that you have in, already on your team, right? Guys heal up from injuries that maybe haven't played all year or whatever. Some of those things that I think are now going to, with the early signing day, which now has pretty much eliminated the late signing day, unless
Yep.
you're, guys want to get to their school and get in for spring, like this. That's a big thing. Guys want to graduate school early or graduate high school early, get on campus, get acclimated to what's going on. I mean, and then you see some of these guys that go through a spring, I don't like it, and they're gone before they even, it's even fall.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
wild.
I've heard two pretty intriguing things recently. One is that, again, depending if how much of the schools get involved in the NIL game and how much that gets allowed instead of, the third party stuff. But
Yeah, the
tying NIL
collectives.
stuff to bowl games, and if you don't play in the bowl,
You don't get money.
you don't get, or whatever percentage it is.
Whatever it is, yeah.
And the other cool thing I heard was, and I forget who said this, but talking about the transfer stuff, basically setting up contracts when you
Yes.
offer a kid a scholarship and say, hey, listen, you have the option. We're offering you a 4-year scholarship, a 4-year contract. If you sign that 4-year contract, you aren't transferring anywhere. We're committing to you, you're committing to us, boom, 4 years. Now, if you don't want to do that, we can talk and say, hey, listen, I just want a 2-year contract. I want to see what happens after 2 years. But at least the school knows, okay,
Right.
hey, we got this guy for 2 years.
Correct.
Now on the kid's standpoint, you kind of, you're rolling the dice a little bit. It's like going into a contract year in the NFL and not signing the deal. After those 2 years, that school could also say, hey, Jimmy, you know what? It didn't
Not working out.
It didn't work out. We appreciate your 2 years. I thought that was kind of intriguing. It kind of, put both sides on the hook a little bit.
I think it's going to have to go that way in some shape.
Something's going to have to tie them to, you know what I mean? These guys just can't be going to, I'm going to this school. I mean, how many times have we heard the reference, you got your third string center asking for $100,000 and he hasn't taken a snap yet or something, right? You hear these horror stories of, or guys that just expect something when they haven't proven anything, or guys that just go to this school because there's this much money on the table. And I think it's really taken away from, like you said, that camaraderie, that team aspect of the game that, like you said, you see some of these guys that are just not willing to do it anymore. I'm sure Saban had a couple more years left in him, but it doesn't want to do this, right? Dave, your guy up at BC who left to go to the Packers, right? Like Jeff Hafley. I don't, like you said, college coaching now, man, it's got to be even harder than it ever has been at any time ever. I look at it you train, you work with these guys day in, day out for 2-3 years, and they have a good season, and all of a sudden, now they're up and they're out in the transfer portal going to look something better. No fault to them, right? Because they're just chasing something and trying to do something, but definitely a hard position to be in terms of being a college coach.
I know, talking to some of the assistant coaches who've come through in the last, couple of years, with the NIL, the one thing that guys have said is because there's no oversight, right? There's no checks and balances. So if you're recruiting a high school player, he can go in and say, hey, coach, listen, school A offer me $100,000 to come there. There's no way to check on that.
Right.
You have no idea. So, a kid could easily juice those numbers up.
Oh, absolutely.
And in the NFL,
well, Matt Rule
that doesn't happen because I was an agent for 6 years in the NFL.
That's what Matt Rule talked on.
Everything goes, all the contracts, including your marketing. They go into a repository, right?
Yep.
So everybody knows what everything is, and that allows. That's the thing. There's no transparency in college football,
Correct.
so it allows for transparency. Obviously, there's rules and all that kind of stuff, but you know what somebody get. So nobody can go and say, "Hey, I got this signing deal." Well, because players used to try to do that, like when
Of course, they're trying to leverage, right?
well, they would say to me, they would say, I got this signing deal from so and so. I could go look. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I'll know like whether first of all, if they're telling the truth to you or not. But you could go look on that because when guys like want to switch agents, all that kind of stuff, you can tell pretty quickly if the guy's a liar, right, or he's a truth teller. And I think that that's a thing that 100% has to become some level of transparency. I also think there's really an interesting experiment, and I don't think it's on purpose, but there's an interesting experiment going on. You got Dabo Sweeney, who will not take a transfer. He will not take a transfer. And then obviously you have Dion, who has kind of gone this complete transfer route. It looks like it's going to implode, but like it's gone. But we don't know yet if Dabo Sweeney's way of doing it will, because it's going to take a few years.
Yep.
It is going to work out. So you got two polar opposite extremes in the same class, and you don't really know which group will win out. Culturally, you know that obviously Clemson,
for sure,
win out, absolutely. But as far as like in the idea of wins and losses and what is deemed successful in college football, but I think it's so interesting that Dabo has just said he's put his whole basically his career, as far as at least with Clemson, on the line, and saying, you know what, I'm not doing it. I'm just not.
Yeah, I'm not playing that game. I'm not doing it that way.
Kids can leave. He doesn't stop kids from leaving.
Kids one of the best quarterbacks. So
he'll go get another high school player, or or junior college guy. One of those two areas, but he's not going to go into the transfer portal. I think that's so. I think it's so interesting to see that going on at the same time. Because everybody else,
like I said, a social experiment,
Yeah,
for sure.
By the way, Coach, I gotta say this to you: if you ever put coaching aside, you have a voice for broadcasting. I don't know if anyone's ever said that to you.
No, but they say voice
that
for radio.
And a great deep voice, like I could hear you calling the play-by-play on the CBS game over there. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
But no, it's really, really, really great having you on and talking football. I'm really excited to see Gilman School is such a like you talked about. The history of the school is so tremendous. And it's funny. There's a couple other guys that have. I guess you're an innovator. Have followed that lead over. At Petty School, you got Mark Favish is now over there, right?
One of my best friends. Real excited.
Oh, okay. Yep. So Mark, I ran track against him in high school. He's probably your class, actually.
He is
right?
a year older, but we worked together at Monmouth. We lived together. Mark was in my wedding, and he and I actually we talked a little bit, about the transition and everything, and.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell him enough. I'm like, dude, you are going to love it. Like you're absolutely going to love it. Because if you know Mark, like great energy, loves young people, and I think he and I in a very similar way, and probably because of where we started, I like impacting young people is awesome. And we were really able to do that at Monmouth because at that time it was just kind of getting going, and it was, for lack of a better term, kind of like
might have had more people at a Gilman game than you did at a Monmouth game back in the day. I mean,
yeah, but we were the coach, we were the strength coach, we were the academic support, we were the counselor, we were everything.
You guys wore a lot of hats.
And now and it's awesome that at the college level, you have professionals in all those positions, and the kids really get the best out of the places that they're at, but. On our end, I think, we're just some guys that really enjoyed, getting to know kids and hopefully, being a part of their journey. And, now being at this level, I couldn't stress to him enough, like you get to do that again, which is really neat.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think you're going to see, some of that stuff continue to shake out as guys figure out, if they want to stay in the college game as it is. And, you got a athlete jumping up to the NFL, and
I think guys are going to go one way or the
both
other.
ways, yeah. And then some want to stay in it too. Some will want to that'll be their forte.
Well,
That's
well,
their
some will like, some will ride the wave and kind of do their thing, right, Dave? And kind of, like Coach said, adapt or die, right? You're still going to see some of these guys that are going to, that are going to, either continue to roll with what happens and kind of, maybe be on that forefront of, what comes of NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, if nothing less, we know things are going to change in some way, shape, or form, right? Nothing ever stays the same. But,
no.
we've made the argument a lot that, like, college football in the past 5 years has changed, more so than ever, with, the monster conferences and all the money being thrown around for this and that, just the game. And that's not even getting to the game itself and how the game itself has changed, right? Like, this is just the stuff
It's
that
a soap
sets
opera.
it all up.
Right. Yeah.
College
And
football is
that's
the biggest soap opera, like in season. Like there's
it's
no
reality TV.
That's why the ratings keep going up and up and up, because the entertainment level with all this stuff going on. So that's what makes it hard to bring the system back in check, because
for sure. But I think I hope at some point, and they're not going to get the genie back in the bottle. I get it.
right.
But I hope at some point they can kind of stabilize a little bit because of exactly what you're saying. Because Jeff Hafley shouldn't feel like he has to leave Boston College because he doesn't get to coach football anymore. Arguably the greatest of all time, Nick Saban, doesn't feel like I'm not having the same impact. Like, this isn't the game that I know and I'm used to. Chip Kelly leaving
he goes UCLA
the head job
OC.
at UCLA to go to an in-conference rival as a coordinator because he doesn't get to coach football. Like, just in general, that's not good for the game of football.
No.
And I hope the NFL takes notice. I'm sure they have, because ultimately it's not going to be good for their product.
Correct.
Because you're going to lose a lot of good coaches, and the kids are going to come in not as prepared.
Correct.
Like I said, will there be a shortage of college coaches? No. You'll always get, there's always going to be people, but is there going to start to become a shortage of good college coaches, football coaches? I fear that could be what ends up happening.
I think I agree with you on that. And in the NFL, you're 100% right. Do you want a watered down product, right? You want development at the college level, because development at the college level is the biggest thing that's going to make your product at the NFL level good.
Right, because they don't have another developmental league.
There's no developmental. It's not like minor league. It's not like minor league baseball where you have single A, triple A, double, all that stuff where you can go through a system. You don't have that. College football is the system. Hopefully that works out. It's been awesome talking to you.
I thank you guys so much. Really, really enjoyed being on. I appreciate what you guys do. It's great to, be around and talk with ball coaches. It's really good stuff.
Thanks, Coach. You have a fantastic day. And listen,
Appreciate
I won't hold
Coach.
it against you that you're a Butler guy.
No, listen, those colors don't run, man.
No. But they have been literally.
He's learned it since. He's learned.
I love the Butler.
Dave's a Saddlebrook guy, so ultimately he gets the Group 1 world. He just doesn't get Butler because nobody can get Butler unless it's in. But he realized it real quick when we had Coach Mick on, and the amount of views and all that stuff, like,
oh my god,
skyrocketed. He was like, oh my god, Butler Colt.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
the whole community is the whole community watching this video.
You're like, yeah, pretty much.
Probably, yeah, for sure.
Probably.
It's great.
Yeah.
It was great. It's a ton of fun. I enjoy.
Coach, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Thanks you so much.
Coach. Hey guys, thank you guys. Have a great day.
Talk soon.
All right.
Bye.
That was great. That was fantastic. It's so interesting. I was thinking that the Gilman School was kind of parallel with like Del Barton.
Del Barton, spot on. Like literally, that's the and like you said, what did he say? Lawrenceville, he saw, like he played, right? Like those level of academics where they're comparable. I mean, look, they're not your Gonzagas of the world, or you know what I mean, like any of that type of stuff. I'm not saying they can't compete with those guys, but when you're talking about same type of thing, like here in North Jersey, or like up in North Jersey, where you're talking about, Del Barton for all those years was always, we're not Bergen, we're not Bosco, we're not that, we're or academics. Like, I think that's kind of more of a parallel to how it is down there. But listen, like I said, I mean, my first loss at Bosco was playing Gilman School when Poggi was there. You know, a lot of good big time players. I mean, look, you know, the DMV, it's a great area for sports in general, right? But like, you know, football, lacrosse, I love how he talked about multi-sport guys encouraging that. I mean, look, you're talking, this guy just doesn't go play lacrosse, right? Like,
Right,
this guy is a
Oh,
lacrosse
Maryland,
player
Maryland.
playing
Yeah.
football. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these guys probably have opportunities to go and do other things like that. And believe me, like when he talks about, you know, understanding that, like he was a multi-sport guy, right?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, his wife was a multi-sport and she's a tremendous lacrosse. His daughters are phenomenal lacrosse players.
Players. Okay.
The whole family is athletic. He's got, you know, he's got a nephew that goes to Vernon High School. That's about to, he's going to Penn State for a scholarship, cross country track, right? Like, I mean, it's just an athletic family that he came from. And like you said, like we grew up playing multiple sports, and that's kind of, you know, you kind of run with it. And we look, we talked about it the other day. I love it that he hit it right on the head when we were talking about go play another sport where you're not the man, right?
Yeah, it's so funny.
Learn
As soon
how
as
to
he
do
said it, right, we were like, "Oh my god!" We were just talking about this yesterday, and the benefits of it, and
right.
it
And
came
he's
out.
talking about go be humbled, right? Like go be humbled where you have to work for something.
You got to work for it.
Like, yeah, you can drop back there and drop dimes as a quarterback and whatever, but now you got to go, and maybe you're the sixth man on the basketball team, right? Or maybe you're not the dude.
Teaches
And
you a
all of a
lot.
sudden, and listen, you heard him talk about numbers, right? Like there's 450 kids in the school, so you know every one of those kids is doing something. You know what I mean?
That's a
Like,
smaller school than I thought. I never realized.
I want to see the exact enrollment numbers because look, we practiced on campus there when we were down there with
Yeah,
Bosco.
yeah.
Because at that point, I don't even think they had their own field, to be honest. Like I don't think they
But
had their
are
own
they
stadium.
Baltimore? What is that? Is that
They are, I believe,
or
Baltimore. Yes, they're
between
Baltimore.
Baltimore and Towson or
Towson, yeah, this is so Gilman, and I remember dude, you're talking like you know how when you get to Del Barton and you like walk in and
yes,
you're like, this is campus, dude. Like
it is Baltimore. Yeah.
it was like that. Yes. They yeah, I'd love to see what's their enrollment. But yeah, it's Baltimore. But look, that like, you know, that academic tradition and whatnot, like you know, that stuff is like embedded in this, you know, too. So it's not just football all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm just looking up the Bryn Mawr. That's like so Bryn Mawr. Oh, so they're both. They must be like brother sister schools, Bryn Mawr and
Right.
Gil.
So they're, and also look, I mean, look, they're, you know, 9 through 12 tuition is 37.
It's like Del Barton. Yeah, it's exactly the same kind of. I think Del Barton might be like 40 or something, but it's more expensive, a little bit more expensive in New Jersey. Very very interesting. Talking. I think the years as a college coach, it's interesting. I'm really curious to see over time if you do see more of it. We probably should get Mark Fabish on at some point.
I'll reach out to him. He just
Yeah,
followed me.
I think
He
he
just
would come
followed me
on.
last week. Gilman School has enrollment. It's 1,000 kids.
But they have a younger school, or that's
They
all.
do have middle school and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
This is just 9 through,
Okay,
I believe.
interesting. Very cool
Yeah,
stuff.
that would be good to get Fab. I'd like to get what's his name from Hunt on too.
Todd Smith. We can get Todd Smith on anytime you want, I think.
Be interesting to hear his outlook on the positives and benefits of having, you know, 12 5-stars.
I could do that.
Some guys
I could do that one for you. Positive. We win every single game. Negative.
Yeah. And then
Negative.
when
Mom and dad of
yeah.
the kids who aren't 5-star keep calling my house because for playing time. There's your positive and negative right there.
Coach, can I wash your car and cut your lawn for you if I can get a couple snaps?
What do I have to donate to get my kid on the field here?
How much?
Todd,
What do we
tell
need? Do we
me.
need a new wing? We need a new science
Do we
lab. What
need
do
a
we
wing?
need?
Do you need your own mansion next to the school? Well, all right, that might get you on the field.
What are the two schools that are comparable to like the Hun and Lawrenceville that are in Connecticut? What's the one like Avon? Is that one of those?
Avon Old Farms, yes.
That's
Avon
like
Old
that
Farms is
too.
probably like Lawrenceville, maybe. Hun School's comparable, like as far as dedication to football, maybe might be like Cheshire School.
That was the other one I was looking at.
Cheshire School's kind of like Hun.
Which one's the head coach from that used to be at UConn?
What school is he? Avon Old Farms.
That's him.
Oh, not the head coach. Okay, what
No,
do you mean?
he wasn't.
Assistant.
He was just an assistant coach at UConn. I think
Or
maybe
played at
he was a
UConn
linebackers
or
a
assistant.
DC.
Yeah, he's at Avon Old Farms. I mean, my guess is there's probably UConn guys at like
Probably everyone.
I mean those schools. Yeah, probably because we used to get a lot of kids from those schools too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did. Well, in because Connecticut, I don't know how Maine was or New Hampshire, but I'm pretty sure UMass, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, like most of those New England CAA schools, they got a lot of kids.
Yeah, I mean, damn, we used to have a
From
good amount of
prep
them.
school.
We used to have a good amount at Sacred Heart.
Yeah. Any of those, because what happens is in New England,
There's just not a lot of those schools, right?
no,
Like,
New England public schools and like aren't that good at football. So the only places that have a lot of the better football players are Catholic, Catholic/Christian schools or private schools.
Yeah, like
so,
what are we talking about? Like it's like school ties up there. You know?
There's a million of them. I didn't know until I went there.
Boarding
There's
schools
a million
too,
of them.
right? Like
Boarding schools.
These kids are
straight
like
up. In Connecticut alone, like every year, like what school
that's
is
what
that?
I was saying. Yeah. Connecticut. It's
I
like
haven't heard of it. Like
these guys,
Kingswood,
and these
Oxford.
kids are like, they're all buttoned up, and you know what I mean? Like they live there. That's crazy.
There's in Connecticut alone, there's St. Thomas More. There's
there's a million.
There's St. Luke's. There's Kingswood, Oxford. There's Avon Old Farms. There's Cheshire Academy. I mean, I'm not doing it justice. I'm saying there's probably like 20 of them. You know what I'm saying? And
Easily.
And then in New England, like we used to get a lot of kids. I don't even know if this place is even there anymore. But there was a school called MCI, Maine Central Preps, like independent. It was like Maine Central, I think it was called. Independent. It was a like up in the depths of Maine prep school. And we would get like a player every year from there. And they would be dudes. And they went to school in like literally the school is Maine Central. And the kids would tell me that
Maine Central Institution, independent high school.
It's still there? Is it still there?
In Pittsfield, Maine. Established in 1866.
I'm telling you, these are old. Yeah. And we used to get players from
Enrolls
there
approximately 430 students and is a non-sectarian institute. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Not maybe it's like I don't know. Maybe it's non like religious.
Yes, football. So I know football was like a big deal there. They have lots of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh God, hell yeah. Oh yeah, it's the middle of nowhere.
It's in. I'm telling you, we would have guys every year.
It's so interesting though. Like that's so interesting though. That's really what I do find that stuff interesting, right? Like
it is.
Obviously, we talk about geography mattering, and certain areas just warrant more of that, right? Like you're not gonna find private boarding schools like that on the West Coast. Like maybe there are, but not like that, right?
Wow.
You're not gonna find the amount of, let's say, charter schools like you do in New York City and New Jersey.
No.
Other places, right? Like it's just not like that, right? Like you go to Texas and you're going to see monster size high schools that are unlike anywhere else just based off of, what the geography makeup is. I mean, you see it here in New Jersey. North Jersey, you have a high school for every little town that there is. You move south of where we are, and even now it's regional schools, and you have 3 or 4 towns. And I was talking about this with Hammond this weekend, Mark Salmon, about just how much bigger high schools are down South Jersey, kind of Philly-ish,
Yeah,
right?
much bigger.
Because they pull from so many of these monster towns. Whereas up north, like, all right, this town has, this many people and they all go to one high school. And that's the difference. Like, so now you're seeing a different, just that stuff, I think is something that's very interesting when you're talking about just the whole makeup of a lot of things. You know what I mean? That's why guys always talk about when they're on the recruiting trail, right? Like, oh, I hit 10 schools today. It's like, yeah, but you're in Bergen County. So like there's 10 schools you could throw a rock to, like you go to these other states to recruit, man. And like you said, like, Chad Brain talked about it yesterday. Like, look, I had to hit 4 schools. Each one of them was an hour and a half apart. And I'd be sitting in the middle of town, like looking for light poles, like the recruiting world is different. And then, and then to where he was doing that to now, they don't even go school to school.
No, I think and I think that it that probably hurts a little bit, like towns like Saddlebrook and Butler, because
of course,
like,
why am I going to go there?
But they used to go there, and
no
that's
matter what.
You would meet a Scott Van Zile, you would meet, a Steve Maneri who was 6'6", and you were like, oh yeah,
right. You'd hit it like, where the hell have you been? Like, I never heard about you, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The harness, right? Like
the harness. You're like, what? So right. And I think that could affect those schools. See, the private schools like a Gilman school, or if you go even New England, like Maine Central,
you're always going to hit them.
They don't even have to hit them because they specifically will get kids that are. So Maine Central Institute, most of the team, just like Lawrenceville Prep, most of the team is kids paying, $40,000 a year to go. But like School Ties, okay, they brought that kid in, right? It's a great example.
Jewish kid.
But he was the star. He was from Union City in the movie, remember?
But he had to hide it.
He was from Union City, New Jersey, right? And so he went up there because he was the star football player in Union City, I guess, right? And he went up there. So he was one of the handful of kids that were there because they were good at football. And obviously they're good students too, but they were good at football.
Of course.
So Maine Central Institute is like, because I don't want them to get mad, but it has that, a lot of the New England schools are, that's right, they made the movie School Ties, right? They have that thing where the kids are regular kids paying a lot of money to go there, and they're bringing in some superstars, right? Like, we would get them. UConn, we had them. Like,
there's also a lot of...
He would come in, a receiver, we'd be like, holy cow, where'd you play? And he'd be like, Maine Central Institute. I'm like, where the heck is that? Like, we were like, Maine Central Institute. They play football. Where is it? He's like, what is that? Pittsburgh, whatever. I'm like, how many people in the town? There is no town. What do you mean there's no town? There's like 2 restaurants. Like there's like... You're
like, there isn't, dude. This is what it is.
Like, we had like 1 store. I'm like, what? He's like, I was there because I needed to get my grades up, so I could, because it was a great academic institution, which it is, and a lot of them are. Get your grades up, play football, or maybe they needed another year, like prep school wise, they needed another year. But it's very interesting. Like, if you went through if you looked up and down, you just started doing a whole deep dive into the prep schools from basically New Jersey north, you would be like, holy cow.
Oh, the Northeast. Liam used to talk about it at Holy Cross all the time too. Not just so much, you know what I mean, guys that went to Holy Cross, but just like when he would go outside and look at like some of the other high schools, or how the high school football world of Massachusetts is, or like,
right.
Maine, Rhode Island, those types of schools. I mean, look, we have our, the kid that played for me at Bosco, Stefanik, who's up in that world, right, in the Massachusetts private school world. Like, he talked about it too. It's like, what the forget the name of his job where he was, but you know, he's
But
you know,
that's
he's
more
been
Powerhouse, traditional place.
correct, right. And he's like, and, you know, and he talks about it though. He's like, look, even though we're a powerhouse up here in comparison to, you know, if we were going to go national, like it's, you know, you got to pump the brakes a little bit. You know, even like you know, think about like even like you
Because
know
they don't have
talking
enough of them. So,
correct.
I just looked at, I just did a quick, I mean, it's a quick one, but prep schools that play football in New England, Avon Old Farms, Brunswick School's a great one.
Isn't there one like by the sea or something?
Yeah, that's Tabor Academy, gorgeous. Philip Exeter, I think that might be New Hampshire. Choate Rosemary, I remember that one.
That's a good one. I've heard that. Choate.
Yep. Obviously, Liz Blair. Oh, here we go. New England Preparatory Athletic Council. I knew they had to have something. Like there had to be like
55. That was our 55th
podcast. Divisional breakdown. Here we go. Oh wow. Yeah, look at this. So okay. So this is the NEP. They call it the NEPSAC. I guess it's kind of a play on
yeah.
You know, what is it? NESCAC, right? It's like play on
right.
that.
Yeah.
But so they have 54 teams playing football in New England in this league. 54. So they have 8-man teams. They have 24.
See, that's interesting too, right? Like you look at some of these schools that do 8-man, right? And I believe it's probably a bigger thing out in the Midwest, correct? Like that's where you know you
Texas
see
too. It's big. It's big in Oklahoma. Iowa, it's big 8-man.
right, because I wrote up that one kid that was an 8-man stud.
Right. So here's the Founders League, and then there's the Northeast Prep Conference. So these are all the must be the powerhouses: Avon Old Farms, Choate Rosemary, Hotchkiss, Kent, Loomis Chaffee. That's a big one. Taft, Trinity Pauling, which is New York, and then the Northeast Prep Conference is Brunswick, Cheshire Academy, Deerfield Academy, Phillips Andover, Phillips Exeter, Salisbury, Suffield, Williston, Northampton. I mean, these are like academically like
tops.
Like yeah, like
Ivy League. This is where they live.
Me and you coming from a small town school, public school, could not probably understand what that world is like until you go, if you went there, because they are like, so the girls and the girls that are going there are, unless they were also recruited as an athlete, for example, maybe basketball or something, the wealth they come from, they're paying like $60,000 a year. So like
these are the ones that like, you know, when you go to dinner at their house and it's like, well, which house are we going to? Like, are we going to our in the city house? Are we going to our
house?
Are we going to our beach house? Are we going to Nantucket? Like,
and you're actually nervous. You're never nervous around. I'm sure you were never nervous. You actually, for the first time, when you actually meet their parents, not that you're nervous about meeting parents,
you're just a difference
because you realize for the first time you didn't grow up anywhere near
no clue
like this person did. You know what I'm saying?
Like, why is that guy like that guy's your what? Like that guy's been around you his whole life. He's your butler. Like what? Like
but yeah, it's
like
very,
sure. I'll take some tea. Thank you.
There's worlds, and it's interesting because when you go to school in New England, you begin to experience some of that.
I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really,
and I didn't even really consider that New England, right? Like, because that's kind of you're just kind of.
Yeah, Sacred Heart's a private school, though. It's a private school,
but you're kind of like just getting to that New England area, right? Like you're just touching like the part of it. But then like I can remember like when we went to Holy Cross.
Like, Holy Cross is New England, dude.
I'm like, all right, I used to like go.
UConn where it's situated. See,
but remember, I'm a history nerd.
I didn't realize it until I went there because I was like, my father brought me up there the first time in the middle of the winter. Like it must have been like winter break, just as like an unofficial, just to meet guys.
Yeah, just to see what's going on.
Just see what's going on. And it was every bit of New England, snow, everything, right? And I said to him, hell
What are we doing?
no, am I going here? This place is freezing cold. And then when I came back around on my recruiting visit, my father always liked it for some reason, but maybe because he's a bad.
Listen, my parents had no clue. Like I literally, I'm telling you, it was the last visit I took. It was a random, like, not an official. It was just like, I'm just gonna go check it out, right? And I didn't even meet the coaches. Like, I met my one coach, and that was it. He was the DC, also my DB coach. That was the only guy I really met. And I'm telling, like, I sat down with the head coach for like, whatever, but I made that decision. I was like, before I even left campus, I'm like, I know where I'm going. And they were like, really? And I was like, oh no, something was just, I liked it. It clicked.
New England to go to college is
I'm not saying walking across campus in the spring had something to do with it, but that definitely was a slight factor.
Right. It's a totally different
vibe. And but I also think because I got a lot of the, like, it wasn't only New England, right? Like, it pulled a lot of Long Island, Staten Island, New York, right? Some of that. So definitely. Like, so Sacred Heart was like, it was a mix of a lot. And it was a small school, but because of where it was with all the like, you had so much, but there were so many other schools around it too that it didn't feel like a small little school. You had Fairfield, you had Bridgeport, New Haven, Yale, Quinnipiac. Like, all of those schools were literally half hour away. But that's what's
cool about New England. See, New Jersey doesn't have that. New England, that was what was cool about. Like, when you went to school in New England, there were so many of these colleges in your area. Like,
it made it bigger.
UConn was near the border of Rhode Island, where it's situated. And so, like, you were like an hour from here, 30 minutes from here, 30. Right. Like, UMass was an hour. Like none of these were really far trips.
No, everything was kind of like all within distance, and it was like, my friend goes to, my friend goes to Yale, or my friend goes to Hartford. Like, we're gonna take a trip up there for the night. All right, cool, let's go. Right? It wasn't beyond that type of stuff, too.
Yeah, no, it was very, and I can only imagine, like, people who went to school in, like, a Massachusetts corridor, that Boston, that's even more New England, right? Because you got all those schools.
Oh, yeah. You had Boston University, Northeastern.
You had Yale by you, too. You had Yale by you,
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was great. I mean, I love that stuff. I'm also a history nerd, too. So, like,
vibe. And everybody likes going to hang out at each other's schools, but nobody like respects each other's schools. So, like, Yale does not respect UConn. UConn does not like Yale. Like it's so fun. It's interesting how the New England, but it also obviously, honestly, it really stems from. It stems from the high school private school thing.
100%. Everybody is so ingrained in their own culture. It's like, screw that. You know what I mean?
In the old days, that's probably who went to college. If you think about the old days.
That's all. Those are the people who went to school.
The prep school kids went to Yale, and if you weren't as smart as a Yale, you went to UConn, or you went to people like money went to Fairfield.
Even for a small state like Rhode Island, I mean, you're talking.
Rhode Island has a million of them.
Brown, right? Like
Providence, Rhode Island,
all of those. URI. What's the other one? Johnson and Wales is a big one up
Johnson
there.
and Wales. Right? Yep. There's a million.
There's a lot. Well, it kind of goes back to. It kind of goes back to when you're talking about all this stuff too, right? Like, just how important education is in the Northeast in comparison to other places too.
It goes back to. I hate bringing it all the way back to this, but it really goes back to the founding fathers.
I was just going to say your Pilgrims and all these other dudes, like, education,
setting up universities and prep schools, right? That's why even though Virginia in between, that's Maryland. That's why Maryland and Virginia have a certain thing with private schools and
of course, yes. Because the colonial days, that's where it was, right?
Thomas Jefferson set up the University of Virginia.
Yes, sir.
Like, William and Mary is the second oldest college in the United States. So even though New England, Northeast is huge education. Then all of a sudden you drive down in like Virginia, Maryland, it's a huge thing because that goes back to like literally the 1700s. Like
Literally. And you know me,
it's,
I'm a history nerd, so like I love all
yeah.
that stuff. That stuff's the best. Listen,
And
when I
California
told you,
brought
like one of
up,
my best experiences in Sacred Heart was literally us going up to Brown to play a JV game. It was just freaking awesome, dude.
you go to these, go to these
And then you're
places.
talking New England in the fall with all the foliage and all that kind of like prettiness, like stuff that like
It's unique. It really is unique. Like if I lived in any other place in the Northeast, if we weren't here in New Jersey, I think I would like to live in like Massachusetts.
yeah. Well, think
You know,
about your sister at Kobe, right? Like that's Maine. That's a little
well,
different.
that's
But I
Maine.
mean,
That's a little.
just that, but like just that culture, right? Just that different. I look at my uncle that lives in Vermont, right by Castleton, man. Like
Yep.
that is freaking. It's such a different experience for these guys. It's cool.
All right. So Maine is like the perfect example of how it goes back to literally the 1700s. So private in Maine, just in Maine, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32 four-year universities in a tiny state. That's a tiny state. I mean, Bates College, Bowdoin College,
Yeah, but
Colby
look at
College.
there's only one FCS, right? University of Maine, that's it, and then everything else is what a 3 or an NAIA.
Southern Maine, I think, is Division II.
Okay.
I think the rest. I want to say Bates. I think it's Bates. That's Division II. But think about it. There's no Division II in New Jersey. There's 2 of them in Maine and 1 FCS school, and then they also. And then I think everything else is Division III. Like Colby is Division III, obviously.
Yeah.
Bowdoin College. I'm just looking at it, but it's Maine Maritime Academy. But it's
I
interesting
mean, a
that
lot of those states, Massachusetts doesn't have many. I mean, you got UMass and then what?
as far as Massachusetts has a million colleges.
Right.
Massachusetts,
All
all
D3
New England.
threes, threes, you know what I mean? Like you're not talking I'm talking like each
Oh,
state.
Division I, yeah.
Oh yeah. That's what I mean. Like there's not like UConn the same thing, you know? Look at Vermont. There's nothing.
Well, when I played,
University of Vermont don't have a team.
when I played, there used to be UMass, BU, and Northeastern all had football.
Well, Northeastern I know was a big like
Holy Cross had football. Harvard has football. But Northeastern and BU got rid of football.
Right, and those were big time school. Those were what? Well, listen, Fairfield got rid of it.
Yes, they were FCS, and then
right, same with Fairfield. Fairfield was FCS. They got rid of it. New Haven's a 2. But then you have like Southern Connecticut and all those WestCon. Connecticut has a lot of football.
Connecticut has a lot, but it doesn't have. So they all recruit outside of that area, and
Right.
So the only places they really recruit in New England are these prep schools and private
Right.
schools. And maybe, obviously if there's an exceptional kid, but for the most part, that's where you recruit. So it'd be so interesting because of like, you meet kids that would be from like New York City, but they finished their school at Maine Central, you know what I mean? And you'd be like, wait a minute, you're from New York. It didn't compute to me because I had no idea what that was like coming from New Jersey. I never knew. It's amazing. I knew nothing when I went to college. I only knew New Jersey. That was it. I knew New Jersey sports and how it was set up, and they were all, and you probably experienced too. Everybody in New England was very, very worried about their jobs if there was a New Jersey player that was brought in or a New York player. Anyone that wasn't from New England, they would be like, "Oh, this kid is brought in to like
take my job."
Because
plus you were also looked at as a douche.
Well, if you're from New Jersey or New York, you definitely were looked at as like, oh my God, New Jersey.
They're like, really? really, this dude's gonna swear a lot, talk fast, and probably be rude as hell. Like, but
He's rude. I used to. Those were my favorite. When I first came to college, those were. I became friends, obviously, with a lot of guys long term. But when I first came to college, the Jersey guys would kind of, and the Jersey and New York guys would all kind of stick together because
then you had your New England dudes.
yeah, the New England guys were totally.
And then you had your guys that were from the South that were just like, I had
Oh,
a
yeah,
couple guys
Florida
that would
people
come from the
Florida.
South. They'd be like, I think both of you suck. So like, we're just gonna beat to our own drum. Like,
Well, the Florida guys were they would be like, come there with no jackets.
I'd be like, dude, they were like, coach, like I've never seen snow. I'm like, well, you're gonna freeze your ass off, dude. So like, here, like, let me get you a hoodie or something, dude. Like, cause this is. They'd be out there like, what is like? This is like, I'd be like, bro, you can't wear flip flops like or slides all day. Like, you got to put some real shoes on here.
You won't be able to wear flip flops till there's 2 weeks left in school.
That's it. I said, look, you're gonna be able to wear them now for this week of camp. I said, but just wait because you're about to start getting cold as hell. I'd be like, you can't wear a tank top everywhere, dude. You have to have sleeves on a shirt, like.
And why does every shirt you have so many colors on it? And
Never. I'm like, dude.
I'm like, are you guys going?
There's 4 feet of snow and you're out there in an orange t-shirt. Like, dude, put on a gray, a black,
You have so many colors.
I never understood that, man. That was crazy.
So many colors on your shirts, all in the same shirt.
All good. I would never.
And I'm a plain guy. You know what I mean? Like
Me too. I've never wear colors, but I'm just saying, like, that was one of the things that, like, I thought that was a great. Like, I loved that aspect of going away to school, right? Because I didn't really experience that when I came back to Montclair State,
right?
Because everybody was a Jersey guy, right? Like, I don't know if we may have had one kid up from New York on our roster, but it was, look, it was interesting seeing South Jersey, Central, North, like that whole type of whatever. But it wasn't the same as being at Sacred Heart, where there was dudes from Staten Island, Long Island, like, playing with guys. I played with a kid who was a 2-sport Division I athlete from Washington State. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was cool. And then to see my coaches that were from a whole bunch of places too. Like, because my head coach at the time had just come from UMass, right? Like, one guy, like, Coach Brown was from Kentucky. I mean, there was a slew of Coach Joffrey was originally a Syracuse guy, but had been at Miami. Like, I loved that stuff too. Like, that was really cool. I liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I never would have ever, and we recruited so heavily for like skill players in Florida.
Yeah,
and it was and the Florida guys are great. They're like, to me, Florida guys were a more chilled, flamboyant New Jersey guy. Like they were like they got how Jersey people were very well because they probably being in Florida were exposed to it. But they were much more chilled and they were like I don't know if flamboyant's the word, but like they were very expressive. And I was like, oh, I'm like, you know what? These Florida guys are pretty cool. Like, I'm like, these guys are pretty cool. Like, they have personalities to them. And it was, but yeah, I used to tell you, like, when you go out, like, when you go and you're hanging out with everybody and like you're getting ready to go out or something.
Or you would like, or so
one
you
of the guys comes
something.
in with the guy comes in with a shirt with like elephants on it and like red, blue, orange, and I'm like, you wearing that out? He's like, yeah, man, girls love this. I'm like, oh my goodness, because you feel like they're dressing like they're in Miami. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, with the pink. Think about it, like Miami Vice, the pink, the white suit jacket. Like, listen, and then at some point there would always be
laughing. If they would laugh at us, they laughed at us. They thought we were.
That's what I'm saying. Like at some point throughout the night, like myself or another Jersey, like we would do something or say something, and they would just like give you a look and just be like you guys are crazy. Like like, I can't believe you just said that or did that or whatever. And they would just like, glad I'm on your side, bro. Like, it was like, they just, it's like a rite of passage.
Very conservative. Connecticut is a very conservative I don't care what they vote politically. The people, how they act, conduct themselves,
Right,
are
with a very prim and proper type of
very
etiquette, right? Like
conservative.
a very pinky up, I just felt like when I
They're
don't know,
polite. They're very polite.
they
Very
are. I'm
polite.
not. Don't get me wrong. And then here we come, and we're just assholes.
Well, we used to say before UConn became great. Well, they were already great in basketball, but like as they were really becoming, you would look in the stands used to be mostly like older Connecticut people, like and we used to laugh because it was like, man, I'm like, these older Connecticut people have so much money. They're buying out all the bottom
Oh yeah,
rows
that's what I meant. Like, yeah, like they're
and
old
bought
money.
everything
Like
out.
they have like
They had the whole bottom rows,
it would yeah, right, like they were coming from, like, you know what I mean, like they didn't just have they didn't just have like land or a house, like they had like a compound, like hey, we're gonna, the house over by the lake, right, but this isn't the main house, like that's just the lake house, like, or something like that, like it was
Well,
just
it
always.
ran the gamut, but it was definitely like dating. It was definitely interesting because you it was like when you went. I don't know. The way New Jersey is set up, everything even down here is different, but it's much more closer together. When you're in Connecticut, the cities are obviously compact, but once you get out of the city, people don't realize that. Like once you get out of the city, like it's suburban, like it's like open. It's very open, and obviously Massachusetts is probably like
Oh
outside the
God.
city. Everything's open. You know what I mean? So, and it's like rolling hills, and it's so. One day, me and you, we should go together because I'll take you. We'll go up to UConn for a game because UConn Stadium is now down is all the way by Hartford. But after that, I'll take you up by UConn, and you'll love it because it's like they have these old New England like pubs, but
Oh yeah,
it's not
the
just a pub.
Packies.
Well, no pub like
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
yeah, like your little
but you
bars. Yeah.
but you eat there like in the 1700s. The
Yeah, it's the
1700s
best.
where everybody went to the pub. It wasn't just because they were going to a drink. You went there to get your meal. You went like they have
Yeah, you
those.
did everything. Everything was
You did
one stop
everything there.
shopping.
Yeah, it was
Well,
cool.
listen, that was, like I said, like that was part of the appeal to go, to Sacred Heart too. Like I love that New Englandish type
Yes,
vibe, right? Like that. And now look, it's different history because it's Revolutionary War history. Whereas if you go
Revolutionary
to,
War,
say, South Carolina or any of those, now you're talking Civil War
Civil War,
history, right?
right?
Like Richmond and Virginia and those types of areas. So like when we were doing that, like I freaking loved it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
like URI was always on my list, closer to Newport, like not,
Oh,
or like
the
Newport,
Newport.
like if Salve had any sense of football, that would have been a spot for me. Like I would have loved to go there. Like I'm sure I couldn't have afforded it, but I sure
I
would have
don't know.
loved to go.
South is winning now. I don't know how Salve doesn't win their league championship every year because
They
all
should
I would
have
have
all those kids.
I just got to get them there. I just got to get them to visit. If you can get them to visit and preferably bring them in, not just like you don't want to bring them in the winter. Bring them in
No, get there
spring.
in like a late spring or an early fall. Or if you even did like, hey, all right, guys, everybody's got to be on campus for these weekends because we're bringing in recruits on these weekends. Like, it doesn't matter if there's no other students here. All we have to do is get them to Newport in the summer. Game over.
It's Newport in the summer. Game over. Newport in the summer is like, and I know people go to like Nantucket and all, and I haven't been to those places, so I'm sure they're great. And I've been to the Hamptons, but not like, that's not really my kind of thing. But Newport in the summer, like I remember the first time I went to Newport in the summer, and I said, "Oh, this is actually something that I would like." It's you go have a great time, but it was still chill at the same time. Like
Yep.
it was, and I don't even have to talk about the other stuff, but it was, yeah. It was great. And you would have, and your friends would want to go. Like, it was one of those, when you drive over the water like that and you're driving in, you just like, life can't be bad when you're driving in here, like,
Correct. Right.
I,
Listen,
I,
even and I think that like and we can talk about whatever, but it all we always like and this is why I tell those guys like you got to visit where you're going to play. Like I know everybody wants to talk about scholarship this and this guy's giving me this or this would but man, you got to go and really see what it's all about at the school itself, right? So, I love that and I'm not talking an official visit because everything is dolled up dog and pony show for an official visit. Like make an unofficial, right? Go up there when people when there's nobody on campus. Go to a school if you can, right? If you have the ability. It's a little different with social media now because you can kind of get up, but just get to the area. I thought that was like that was one of my favorite things about the recruiting process was just going to the school itself and like asking those questions, seeing what it is
that's
because
part.
look, I know for as much time you're going to be playing football and takes up a lot of that, but you're also going to be there a lot more when football's like also not going on. And what are you going to do? You're not just going to sit in your dorm or do those kind of things. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going to want to go and do other things. And if you're unhappy and you don't like what's going like that stuff, then how the hell are you ever going to be, football, whatever. Like you're just going to be unhappy the whole time.
I think
So
that's what I think the sad, even though I get the transfer portal, I understand all of it.
that's one of the things that's going to be
Saddest
gone,
thing about the
dude.
transfer portal is that a kid doesn't get to enjoy the
Being a
college.
college student.
He doesn't get to enjoy it because the one thing you did and I was able to do, I know I definitely was able to do, was I knew I was going to, once I knew I was going to be there, I tried to enjoy everything in the college, like relationship wise, like school wise, the professors, like you have them a second time.
Absolutely. They
Like,
knew they knew, you know what I
who
mean?
you
Like,
were.
hey man, great freaking game this
They
week, kid.
knew.
Like wow, like you're really making an impact as a freshman. Like nobody's like and I'm going like, holy shit. Like you know what I mean? Like, you know,
I get it, the money thing, I
I do
get it,
too.
but, like, I get it, I mean,
And
I'm
I
sure
wonder if it has something to do with like how I was raised and the fact that my town was always, like it was important, right? So, I mean, now like, I stayed at a small school for college and it was the same type of thing where people knew who you were and they knew that type of stuff. Like even Montclair, like, that was nice. I mean, a commuter school then, not so much now, but smaller campus, right? Like everybody kind of knew who you were. You saw the same professors over and over again. Like, I don't know. There's just something for that or to that I think, benefits us in the long run. And I
I
don't know if these guys get that, right? Like, because, before they blink, they've been at 3 different schools and they've had 4 different coaches. And this one wants to do this guy wants to do that. And like, how much of a relationship can you really form with somebody when, you're in and out the door so quick?
there's no doubt about it, I don't I that's the part of the transfer portal that, like, I think everybody's missing because 'cause we're so focused on money, and we're so
And like you
focused.
said, we're not going to see it until it's down the road a little bit,
You won't see it. Like, I thought so. This is interesting. Just because UConn went from FCS to FBS, and
Literally, my freshman year of college was their first year FBS. They had
right.
just built that stadium.
So when we went to FBS, so
So that
my
was 2004, Dave.
2000, I think it was 2000.
Right. I'm saying when I was
No,
at St.
99,
Marcus.
99 or 2000, they went to FBS. So my senior year, the freshmen that were the kids who were freshmen when I was a senior, fifth year senior, played Division One. So those kids played Division One because they were the first class that we were able to recruit Division One players. So, but when I talked to those kids who were like a few classes after them, because some of those guys, and talked to the guys that were my grade and stuff, the camaraderie levels long term
Yep.
are
2000.
different. Yeah, because we were FCS and football was important, but we still were like college experience versus when they were like really doing well. And those guys don't all have the same relationships. And
Hell no.
I think so. If that's going on just at Division One level, because you're all competing so high, can you imagine what it's like when if you don't have your job and you're leaving right away? There's no way. There's very few relationships that the players are going to be able to form with each other. Maybe offensive linemen do because
That
that's
I
who they
heard that was
are.
great too. Yep, I was gonna like I heard Taylor Lewan talked about it the other day on Bussin' with the Boys. He said he was talking about something about how like, you know, the O line is always the tightest group on the team, right?
Yep.
Because there's 5 of those guys and they just do their own thing, and it just kind of those guys are always going to be your closest knit group on the field. And I thought that was very interesting. Like, yeah, obviously, like those 5 guys need to literally work in unison, all on the same page in order to be successful. And it's kind of like you don't really, they really don't get the kudos that they should. And I think, Harbaugh did a great thing when he drafted all, I think, in the first round. And he was like, they're like, oh, you didn't take a this, you took a lineman. And he said, yeah, because the linemen are the superstars on the team. And that's the truth of it, really, because I both know you ain't doing shit without a line, like you can have a great quarterback all you want, but if that line don't do what they're supposed to, dude, it ain't gonna work.
There's no doubt about it. It's that's the thing that I'm trying. We won't know for many years, but my thing is, and I heard this said the other day too.